I think great stories have to have great headlines. Now, I don't know if our next guest wrote the headline, but it's a great headline. It's a different kind of neighborhood watch. Naked neighbor exposes cracks in indecency laws.
So 24/7, he's nude in his unit, but for 10 to 15 minutes a day, he will go near the windows and he will expose himself and touch himself.
This is in the Streeterville, Gold Coast area of Chicago. Female residents of a downtown high-rise say they've seen enough of a male neighbor who exposes himself on a regular basis in front of his windows. They claim the behavior has gone on for several years.
I do feel it's a form of sexual harassment, yes.
We can't do anything. We're stuck like this.
In fact, one woman, there's more than one woman in the story, and as I said before the break, I urge you to go to WGNTV.com and watch it. One of the other women exposed to this guy keeps a log of the guy in the next unit.
From the time I reported it to my building, I began keeping a log, and there would be times that he would make eye contact with me or hold up a sign of some kind, and then he would walk with me. Like if I would go into my bedroom, he would go into his other room so he could follow.
Yeah, he's not exactly a nudist. He's a harasser. They claim the behavior has gone on for far too long. They've complained to the police and the building management company, his building and the two women, their building, owned by the same management company. And they say they were told that nothing could be done because the man is inside his own home. That's in dispute, too. Ben Bradley joins us now from Channel 9. He's an Emmy Award winner, and we appreciate his time on a Friday afternoon. Ben, thank you for your time. What is the backstory, or I guess I should say, what is the full frontal story here?
John, thanks for having me on. First of all, it's interesting because I think when people, just see a promo or, hear 10 seconds of a story, they think, well, you can do whatever you want in your own house. What's the big deal? Why, are these news crews picking on this guy who's in his apartment? And the reality is we wouldn't have done a story if this wasn't an ongoing issue that these women have been complaining about for several years. And they only came to us after the alderman tried and failed. Police said they couldn't help. They confronted the man last fall and made sure that he knew, how his actions were impacting them. He said he'd stop, and he didn't. And they say he was actually engaging with them, right? Like it wasn't just, catching a glimpse of somebody on their way between a bedroom and a bathroom, that this was, occurring most of the day, and frequently it also included him, being more crude, if you will.
Yeah. Well, as the women said in the story, they said he would frequently expose himself and then pleasure himself in front of them and hold up signs and make eye contact. Both buildings are owned by the same management company. What did the management company say?
Well, the women went to the management company, and the management company refused to help them. The management company did not return our calls and requests for comment. But this is not just something that was affecting, one or two people. There were the doorman knew about it. Everybody around kind of knew that this had been happening. In fact, since our story aired, we heard from people who said, oh, my gosh, I used to live in that building. We'd have roof parties for the air show, and I'd wonder why half my guests were not looking towards the lake. They were looking back, and it's because this was going on.
So you didn't name this man because he's not been charged, but he's about 70 years old. You talked to him. Give us your sense of if he's a real creep or just a give me your sense of what he's like.
Yeah, that's not my place to say. What I can tell you objectively is, this man is almost, is roughly 70 years old. The women who came forward are in their 20s. When we spoke with him in person, my first question after introducing myself was, why don't you put your blinds down? And his response was, well, why don't they put their blinds down? So initially it was a bit combative, And then he grew more meek in our conversation, and I said, you have to know that, this is making people feel uncomfortable. And he said he didn't want anyone to feel uncomfortable. He said he would stop, but he had said that before.
And since your interview, he hasn't stopped.
Yeah, well, so yes, the women say that he has not engaged directly with them, but he is still, nude in his unit. And keep in mind, these young women say they've tried everything from engaging with him to putting up signs in their windows to calling police, this one young lady just has her curtains closed all the time because she says anytime she opens them, that's when the show starts.
And this is the Gold Coast or Streeterville. I mean, expensive property, right?
It's Streeterville, and she owns the condo, right? Like she's in her 20s. It's she's living the dream, right? She thinks she's going to buy in a nice high rise, a couple blocks from the lake, and have these beautiful views. And instead, she has this. Yeah. Now, I will say, we also, before doing the story, wanted to better understand what the laws were, because if you look at Twitter and the responses to the to the story, people who only saw the promo say, "Oh, well, you can do whatever you want in your own house," and that is true to a point. The Illinois law on it, and we had a former Cook County prosecutor whose job it was to prosecute public indecency cases tell us as part of the story that. You can do whatever you want in your own home unless there's a reasonable expectation people can see you, and unless you're doing it for sexual gratification. So in this particular case, the man knew people were seeing him. The man had been told that people had seen him gratifying himself. He, according to the women, had engaged with them. The equivalent that the former prosecutor gave us, and I kind of clicked for me and made sense, is, it's the difference between, being naked in your house someplace or, getting spotted because you ran downstairs because you forgot something. That's not public indecency.
Right.
But it is public indecency if you are standing in your front window naked, knowing that people are walking by on the sidewalk looking at you, and you derive some sort of pleasure from that.
Yeah, with an intent to arouse. That's what the law is based on. Well, I will say I watched it twice. I'm ashamed to say, but I watched it twice. I thought you were very fair to this guy. I urge all my listeners to go, of course, to your website, WDGNTV.com, and take a look at it. I don't know if you want to submit it for an Emmy. I don't know if that's going to...
I probably won't. It was an interesting kind of life in the city story that here's a problem you probably wouldn't think of. And as easy as it is to roll your eyes and say, oh, doesn't Chicago have bigger problems? Don't the cops have bigger fish to fry? And why don't you go report on violence and crime and political corruption and all that other stuff? The reality is we do report on all those other things. And this was something new and unique that we thought deserved more of an explanation of, hey, when is it? Yeah. When is it wrong to do this?
When does it cross the line? He's not a nudist. Yeah. He's not a nudist in my mind. He's trying to elicit a response from those young ladies. He's engaged them. It's his intent to arouse. That's illegal in my book. Certainly, if I was a management company, I'd have paperwork in the process of trying to get him out of there. Ben, thank you very much for your time. Have a terrific weekend.
I appreciate it. Good to be with you.
A public place under the law doesn't have to be outside. It can be in your home if you're someplace that you can reasonably be expected to be seen by others.
That is Maggie Mendenhall-Casey from Ben's Piece, Channel 9. She prosecuted public indecency cases for the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. She disagreed, as Ben said, with what the police told the women. She said, quote, a public place under the law doesn't have to be outside necessarily.
I think the video plus more than one person complaining on more than one occasion would, in my opinion, as a former prosecutor, substantiate the case.